Hi, it's Tanya from Trauma Talk, Mind, Body, Spirit Healthy, and this is episode 2. So this week I wanted to talk a little bit about how I hit a low point, and I've been kind of trending down for a little while, but I finally actually realized it when I verbalized this week that I feel like a failure. And that's because I had regressed. And when you're going through your recovery and you think that you've healed your trauma, you somehow get into this little bit of a misconception that you've healed your mental illness as well. And while I have, and I've gotten great tools and techniques and tips that I can use to manage my symptoms, the fact remains I still have anxiety, depression, panic disorder, and complex PTSD. So, and like I said, I was naive, and but that complex little bugger, he doesn't get defeated easily. And I have spent every day for quite some time now in that familiar grip of terror with the icy veins, just feeling very, very cold, and that heavy weight, and just being extra emotional, more teary, just really dipped quite low. So I've been having to do a lot more grounding and stuff like that. You try to act the good part in public, you put on the show, you try to be as strong as you can be and do all of that stuff, but at the same time, you're still not maybe doing as well, if you acknowledge that anyway. So you may feel like you're coping, but you're not coping well, and that's where I was at. So my job now is to just respond with kindness to what my body's experienced, and not to judge or call names. So what I do is I disassociate from my trauma. That's how I ended up doing what I've done with my life, which is in the one realm, very successful life. I have 9+ years post-secondary education. I have awards. I have a great, successful career. And so I drove. It was kind of like the little pats on the head from the teachers at school. I just really, really enjoyed that. So I became very studious because it was better than the alternative, where maybe I wasn't feeling as much love or affection, or my needs weren't being met in that same way. And it was also just the direction that I decided to focus when I decided I wasn't going to be like my history, or I wasn't going to be like my parents, and that I could achieve more and do better. So I disassociate from my trauma, and I just focused on work. And lately I've been focused on returning to my career, and I was looking forward to that, because I love my job. And healthcare is challenging, but it's also extremely rewarding at the same time. We don't just save lives, we get to give hope, we give a smile, we get to, give a back rub, comb someone's hair, do mouth care. And I know all of the nurses that are listening to this are going to agree how important mouth care can be, especially for someone nearing the end of their life, or just someone that's not capable of doing that for themselves. But we, in doing those things, we give so many different things that create impact in each person's life, and it's so individual and personal, and the way that we impact them is personal as well. And in my return, I was looking forward to it as well, because I have the benefit of getting to work with clients and patients, but I also get to work with staff and have a positive impact on that. I tried to be a good leader when I was working in management, and I wanted to make sure that I was someone that they could come to with their stories, and that I would listen to them, and I would look at them as a whole being, not just an employee. I tried to be the type of leader that I would want, and that is someone that understood that the role that we play outside of work is in fact our most vital and important role. So we need to be strong for our families, we need to be strong for our health, like to be able to take care of ourselves. If our child is sick, our husband is sick, or we have health and wellness issues, does that somehow equate to that we're not a good employee? We don't lose our value because we have illness. Do we honor the quality of work that people give to us when they are there? Or, you know, do we recognize that they have those complicated health issues in their own lives, or that their family may have complicated health issues, or, you know, they're dealing with other struggles, whether financial or anything? And I mean, do we look at all of those issues combined when that employee comes into work? I certainly tried to, and I'm almost certain that I was quite annoying to people for that, because on the flip side, I mean, as much as I want to be supportive of my employees that have health and wellness issues, and I think that every organization should, unfortunately, when you end up working short and you're struggling with the heavy demands that exist, it makes it really challenging if you're now short-staffed and you have to compensate and cover for them. But I would rather care for those people who have, you know, like everybody else does, a life that's varied and diverse and has all these complications. I'd rather take care of them and know that if we gather together and we're strong together, that we can overcome being short, knowing that when that person returns to us, they're going to come back to us being able to really, really help in the environment. But again, I'm sure that I annoyed people. So we're already pulling more weight than ever before. And I started thinking about this prior to my burnout, and I had kind of an analogy that I used, in that when we're in our positions nowadays, that you know, they'll design a position, say like mine, which would be, say, managing a merger acute, and then they would say, okay, but now we're going to give you the health and wellness committee, and you get to be a part of that. And you're like, okay, it's a small thing. It's kind of like a plate, and you have your serving of food, and someone comes by with a little bun and says, do you want this bun? And you're like, well, it's small, it'll fit on my plate, and you put it on your plate. But over time, your plate gets full, and also, without noticing it, your plate gets bigger. And the reason why your plate gets bigger is because you get more capable, more competent, you learn to manage your time more effectively, you learn to incorporate it and take it over. But eventually, it doesn't matter who you are, your plate will only get so big, because we're only capable of assuming so much responsibility before we actually buckle or burn out. So what happens with that? You keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, then you try to replace that person, and what ends up happening is that someone comes in and they're like, you are offering that much money for those roles and responsibilities? Are you kidding me? And we find that when we're talking to other people about our roles and our positions nowadays, and we're saying, these are the lists of roles and responsibilities and tasks that I have in the course of my day, and they're like, what? That's one person's role? And what do? We rob from other areas. We rob from our family, we rob for time, like the time that we steal from our family, or the time that we steal for our health. You know, instead of going to the gym and working out, now instead I'm putting in extra hours at work to cover for those blooming responsibilities that we continue to have. What ends up happening, though, is when we hit burnout or whatnot, and this is especially relevant when you look at your company, if you're really paying attention, you're going to notice that within your company, if you hire into a position, you find a hard time getting people that actually want to take that position, because they're recognizing from the outset, I'm stepping in, but I haven't grown with those responsibilities. They weren't little increments that I grabbed as I went on. I'm to walk in and assume this entire role. Well, someone that's been doing it for years has developed techniques, and they've incorporated those bits of extras as they've went along. So people end up getting into these roles that have evolved over time into these huge, huge things which aren't being compensated accurately. And when you get somebody into those positions, oftentimes within 2 years, they burn out. And what does the company do? Does the company review the position and say, wait a second, that was a pretty quick turnover? No. What ends up happening in companies nowadays, and I'm hoping that we can move forward collectively as a society and change this, there needs to be more attention to mental health, and there needs to be more work-life balance. But what ends up happening now is it gets turned back onto the employee. the employee wasn't strong enough, or hey, we found out she has mental health issues, so she's clearly not capable of doing this role anymore. Oh, he has depression. I don't know if he can manage that workload. We always turn it towards the employee, and it's a problem with them. They weren't strong enough. They somehow failed. The company doesn't look at it and say, wait a minute, maybe the role's the issue. Maybe there's too much responsibilities. Maybe this role has continued to grow and grow and grow. Maybe we need to look at restructuring responsibilities or duties or tasks. Maybe we need to look at compensating more fairly for the role. Or maybe we need to look at who we are as a company. Do we have a psychologically safe workplace? Are we looking after our number one thing, which is our employees? I mean, we can have whatever company we want, and unless you run it by yourself, your number one thing is going to be your employees. In my company that I'm trying to establish, I'm my product. Right? I'm the one that is selling the face of mind, body, spirit, healthy. So I operate on a value system. That's my integrities. So if somebody was to say to me, will you advertise this product for me on your site? I'm not going to just do that. I'm going to look at, is it something that applies to my value system, and is that appropriate? That being said, all of this that's come up, and all of the thought and the processing that I've done, and recognizing that I need to just take time and be kind and work through my PTSD, acknowledge that I oftentimes am not in control of what the trigger is that my body responds to. The only thing I can do is take care of my body so that I can go forward and not deal with the symptoms of it. And that's through kindness. Kindness and love and compassion, and obviously taking a little bit of extra time. So anyway, know that you're not alone, and you are your most important asset. You are the only thing that is going to take care of you foremost, right? Your company's not going to, your friends aren't going to, you. You're the one that needs to take care of you, and you need to prioritize your health and wellness above everything else. Because at the end of the day, if your health and wellness isn't okay, you don't have a job and you're sick. So be healthy first and foremost. I'm Tanya, Mind, Body, Spirit Healthy, and this is Trauma Talk episode 4. I look forward to talking to you guys later. And please hit me up with some comments, because I'd love to know any questions that you have or any ideas of where you would like this to branch into. If you have some ideas of somebody that you'd like me to have on the show, or you'd like to be on here, just let me know and I will try to slot you in. I'm really looking forward to where this is going to go. I really enjoy the fact that I'm able to reach out in sharing my story, that hopefully I'm impacting you in a positive way and letting you know you are not alone. We are all human. We all make mistakes. We are all flawed. And that's probably one of the best things, is that in our crazy uniqueness, we impact people's lives in such wonderful and crazy and awesome ways. And I look forward to continuing to do that. So thank you. And please leave me a comment, share, follow, whatever you have to do. This little light of mine, I got to make it shine.